Okay, everyone, welcome back. I'm really pumped because it is National IBS Awareness Month. So I thought it would be fun to bring on somebody who is an IBS warrior. I don't know if you guys call yourselves that, but we're going to go with that for right now. And she also has interstitial cystitis. So we're going to kind of talk about all things IC and IBS today. So with me, I have Christine Olivo. Welcome to ICU.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like this has been a long time coming, just being able to talk to you virtually face to face. So I'm excited.
I know, I weirdly feel like we're already friends because we've been DMing each other so often.
I know. I totally feel the same.
I know, and we have a lot of similarities in our lives. It's like we both have both of these conditions, and then we suffer from emetophobia, which we might dive into a little bit in here. But yeah, I think it's really cool because, and we're definitely going to be linking all of your social media accounts, but you really built up your Instagram and your TikTok accounts just to kind of bring humor to the chronic illness community. And I think that's amazing. So can you just introduce yourself and share, what led you to start those social media accounts and raise awareness?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words and everything. Yeah. Hi, guys. My name is Christine Olivo. I created the My IBS Life Instagram page back in June of 2019. So coming up on 4 years, which is awesome. But yeah, you can also find me on TikTok and other social platforms. And so it's actually kind of funny. Before I started Instagram, I had a YouTube channel that was super embarrassing. And I actually hate talking about it, but it led me to My IBS Life, which was the one good thing. So I had this YouTube channel. I had literally 12 subscribers, 12 subscribers.
Your 12 biggest fans.
Yeah, right. Like my mom, my dad, all of that. And I would put up videos just about all different things about my life, kind of like what, the big YouTubers were doing back then when YouTube was the biggest platform. And I ended up posting a video that was called Ways IBS Ruins My Life. And that video just did so well in air quotes, because at the time it got 1,000 views, which at the time I was like, oh my God, that's insane compared to the other ones that have 10 views. So I kept making videos like that. And those were always my more viewed videos. And I would get people DMing me on Instagram saying that it was relatable. They know what I'm going through, blah, blah, blah. So once I got sick of kind of doing YouTube, I was like, I'm just going to make an Instagram account. And my only intention with it was to kind of just have a place for me to vent about my daily struggles with IBS. Before My IBS Life, I just always felt so alone with it. And I was like, I just want a creative outlet to talk about it. If I even get 200, 300 followers, that would be awesome. And then it kind of just spiraled into this whole big thing that I never thought was coming. So yeah, that's kind of how it just all started.
I think with conditions like IBS and IC, you literally have to just laugh through the pain or else you're going to cry.
Absolutely. I feel like that's been how I've coped with just everything in life, IBS, IC, anxiety, the dark humor is just what gets me through everything.
Oh, for sure. And sometimes that gets me in trouble when I make videos that have dark humor. People will get pissed off about it. And I'm like, you know what? Screw those people. I think we're making more people laugh than pissing people off.
Absolutely. It's actually so funny you bring that up too, because I was on a call last week with someone that I really like and respect, but it was very interesting because he's more on the medical side of the IBS world. And he had told me that I don't know who, and I don't want to know, but he said that there is a lot of people that think my page is very negative. And what I do is hurting people more than it's helping. And everyone can have their own opinion. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but I also disagree with that. I think, people might not find it funny, but that's because it's the reality of just living with these conditions, which I think is just important to put out there because so many people feel alone.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you're kind of making fun of yourself with it. And I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of us enjoy viewing. And for the people who are upset by our content, like they don't have to follow us. They can just go live their own lives and stay in their lane.
Exactly. And that's kind of the beauty of Instagram and all social media platforms is that there's so many different people in our communities that we are in, and everyone has a different voice, a different perspective. So if we're not your cup of tea, there's someone else, and that's totally okay. But I think what we do is absolutely great too. So yeah.
Right. And I think I've seen you at least one time like have to take a bit of a break because people were getting to you. And I can absolutely relate to that because there are a lot of like trolls and Karens in the internet. And it while we can build up a thick skin, like there are certain days where you're just it's too much. And, I'm a really sensitive person. And although I have worked on kind of letting it roll off my shoulders, like sometimes it does sit with me for longer than I want it to. And it's not a good feeling.
No, absolutely not. And I totally relate to that. I tell my husband all the time, like, I am just like too sensitive for social media. Like I should not be here. Yeah, I feel like, and I'm sure you've had this too, especially with like Instagram reels and TikToks, like the it's so random when it goes viral.
Yes.
And as fun as it is to have a video go viral, that is when the trolls start seeing your stuff
Yeah.
and you start listen, I laugh at comments that call me like ugly, stupid. Like I'm like, that's hilarious. Like keep it coming. It's more of the comments I get from like sometimes my own followers when they don't
Mm-hmm.
or when they disagree with something and they're not the kindest about it. That's what hurts me the most. And sometimes I'm like, okay, like maybe I need to reassess how I'm putting stuff out there. Maybe I need to like reassess myself. And I was like, okay, let me like take a second. But yeah, it's hard on the internet and people are ruthless.
Right. Yeah. And usually it's a reflection of them and maybe their insecurities. I just think that the internet, it's so easy to be unkind to people. And, sometimes that's people's intentions. Other times it's not. I think it's okay to have a different opinion than someone, but it's the way that you deliver that message that really matters, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you really do. I think, especially in our communities too, we're all dealing with a lot at all times, whether it's physical or mental, like pain or suffering. And it's very real that, like, what you write on someone's content, or if you're just replying to another person's comment, like what you say can really affect them if they're already going through more than they can handle. So, yeah, it's definitely a good reminder to just it's not that serious. Okay, we can all like relax a
Right.
little bit, myself included, and just be kind to each other. We're gonna make it through.
Yeah, I always have to remind myself that it's corny, but that saying hurt people hurt people. Like it's the
Yeah,
people who are suffering the most. And I try to give them some grace. And sometimes I just need to not have that like knee-jerk reaction where I comment back immediately or I block them immediately. It's like have to think about it, let it sit, and just sometimes you just ignore it and move on.
absolutely. I'm the same way. I always want to fire back. And sometimes it's necessary and
Sometimes it is.
but there are a lot of times, like you said, I'm just like, this person's probably going through a lot. They took it out on me. It's probably not even that personal. Let me put my phone down for a second. I'll come back later.
Let me go pet my cat and I'll be back.
Right. Yeah. I need some serotonin real quick. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I find that when kind of what you were saying about when videos go viral, it's like that's when like the creepy men come out and get a little weird. And those are easy to ignore, but it does sometimes sit with me the wrong way when, like you said, somebody maybe doesn't agree with something that I believe in and my methods and how I help people. And it's something that I do actually I have a business mentor, and she's like a coach essentially, and she helps me with the business side of things because I had no, education in that aspect, and I needed help with that. And so she always, talks to me about how, you just need to let this roll off your shoulders. These people really are suffering, and you're helping so many people, and you need to own what you are, like what you believe in. You need to own your expertise. Not everyone's going to believe or agree with you. And I think that is really helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you have like a whole different perspective on things too. And I know we have talked about this ourselves in like DMs and stuff of like when you're promoting your business and services. And, I have other people in the space that are registered dietitians that get the same crap. Like people think their services are a scam or they should be cheaper. And I'm sure that
Right.
plays like a mental toll on you guys too, of just, but like you have to remember your worth and how much you're like giving to these people. And there are people out there that very much think, your price points and everything you're giving is
Exactly.
and worth it. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. No, and sometimes it's hard because I'm like, oh, are these people right? And then my business coach will be like, no, like you invested so much in your education, your expertise. I mean, as dietitians, we go through so much to have those credentials. And even further than that, like there was only one other IC dietitian in the whole world when I came on the scene. And so now I'm the second one. And it's like you can't find that anywhere else. And so I'm starting to understand that, or being more okay with, okay, those people are going to be pissed that I'm charging for my services. That's okay. Like there are so many people who still value what I do, and I can change their lives, and that's all that matters.
Right. Absolutely. And also like the power of like then people like giving you reviews or talking like highly of you after you've helped them so much, like that can sometimes make those other people that were once like no, be like, okay, maybe I'm gonna, whether you want to take those people on or not is like
Right.
it's totally up to you, but like then they see the value in it and they see that, no, this is worth investing in. It's an investment in my health.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And I could talk about this for so long, but why don't we dive into your medical journey? Can you talk about your diagnosis with IBS? And then I think you said you got diagnosed with IC after that. So how did that all come about?
Yeah, sure. So I was officially diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome in the spring of 2007. I had had like 6 months prior to that of just dealing with the symptoms, a lot of bloating, switching from diarrhea to constipation, nausea, just like indigestion. And I kind of say that like, I was going through this, but like I was going through it like hard. And it was probably like one of the worst times of my life. And I was really young, so that was just hard too.
Yeah, how old were you?
I was 12 when it all started.
Yeah, that's
I
when I
was
was struggling
17.
with IBS too. And that's so hard when you're a kid and you're in and out of the bathroom in school, and it's like you're so self-conscious about it. I remember I was just like incredibly worried about what other people were going to think of me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at that age, you're already like going through so much. Like you're going through puberty, everything's embarrassing. You want to be cool, all those things. And
Right.
um, yeah, the social aspect is just a whole other layer of it. And I just like, it's funny you say that too, because I just stopped going to school. Like I would cry every single morning to my mom and beg her to let me stay home. And most days I just did because I couldn't, even if I felt okay, I was just so scared of the possibility of having a flare at school that it was enough to make me stay home.
Are
Uh,
you also, this is like, I'm just generally curious, like when I have an IBS flare, I like essentially run to the bathroom. And if I'm in a public bathroom, I'm like, please, if someone is in here, like I'm gonna have to find a different bathroom, or like I'm gonna have to flush 1,000 times to like mask it, because it's so embarrassing, right?
yeah, I'm the same way. And it's like, I get mad at myself for it because if I were to go into a public bathroom and hear someone having a hard time, like I'm not sitting there thinking like ew, that's like so
Right.
embarrassing. I'm like, oh my God, I hope they're okay. Like,
Right.
and
Exactly.
so, yeah, but I'm the same way, like even in my own house. Thankfully we have 2 bathrooms, but like if my husband's home and I need to go to the bathroom or if I'm flaring, I'm like, what level are you going to be on? Because I'm going to the other one.
Oh my God, I relate to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I'm the same way with public bathrooms. And like, that's exactly why, like, I never wanted to go to school. And even now as an adult, like, I don't want to go out when I feel like something might happen because of
Mhm.
that. But yeah, so that was kind of like the beginning of my IBS journey. I went through, all the tests and gastroenterologists and finally got slapped with the IBS diagnosis once everything looked normal. Um, and that was kind of just how life was for a while. And then I think it was about 10 years later, I was diagnosed with IC. And honestly, it's comical how similar the process was.
Mhm.
The diagnosis, it was literally just like go to 8 different urologists, gynecologists, do little tests. Okay, everything's great. We don't know what's wrong. So we'll say you just have interstitial cystitis. And that's kind of just how it's been.
Mhm. And what were your symptoms?
For IC, it's been more like my symptoms, like I get like just like it just feels like pain in my bladder. I get really bloated from it. It hits me the hardest usually. It's always the week directly after my period, and every single morning for that like entire week, if I even have like a drop of urine in my bladder, I feel like sick to my stomach.
Mhm.
I feel like nauseous, but it also just feels like someone has my bladder in their hand and is just like squeezing it constantly. Um, and those are pretty much my main symptoms with that.
That's so interesting that you noticed it after your period, because usually people are either during their period or it's the week before.
Really,
Yeah. So that's so interesting.
that is interesting. Yeah, it's always like it's like I have like one good week of the month because the one week is like PMS, going crazy, crying, whatever, which is
Uh-huh.
really a problem on its own. I should figure that out. And then the next week is like having my period, and then I get hit with my IC. And I know I was telling you off camera before this, but like it really ranges. Like some months it's way worse than others. Sometimes it's just like annoying, and then there's other months I'm like, no, I'm dying.
Mhm. Do you ever do you ever get the period poops?
Oh yeah,
It's like a double whammy because it you can't tell if it's your period or if it's an IBS flare or if it's just both.
yeah. It's like I feel like we deserve a break.
And then my IC will flare and it's like a triple threat and I'm knocked out for the day.
Yeah, it's
You
just
got to
like
take a shower.
yeah, literally gonna sit in my tub and just like no one talk to me.
Uh-huh.
It's like, yeah, no, the period poops are the absolute worst. And I know that they're so common. It's awful.
It really is. And I don't really think about it until it happens. Like I forget about it the rest of the month. And then that 1 or 2 days, I'm like, oh, it's this again. This is
I know.
terrible.
It really is just, and you just feel like so gross. And you're just like,
Uh-huh. No,
yeah.
I'm telling you, like I have times where I'm like, that was awful. I just fought for my life on the toilet. I need to take a shower.
No, I get it. I get it. Yeah, you need to like sit in the shower and just stare at the wall for like a good 30 minutes and get yourself.
Mhm. Do you follow that one girl on TikTok who just makes videos of her like in her bathroom pretending to like, have the period poops, or she just like everything that you think is TMI, she like makes videos describing it and like acting it out. Does this ring
Yeah.
a bell?
No, I know exactly. She has like the crazy hair and
Yeah,
everything.
I don't know her name,
I
but
forget what her name is too, but I follow her too. Yeah, she does like all these things with like tampons and everything.
I
It's
love that
hilarious.
account. I love
It's
it.
so funny. I do too.
Normalizing all the things that people are afraid to talk about. And I think that's great.
Yeah, yeah, right up our alley for sure.
It is. It is. So, have you ever gone to pelvic floor physical therapy?
I haven't. So when I was like going through the process of getting diagnosed with IC, the one urologist I saw, that was his suggestion, was to do that. And honestly, at the time, pelvic floor therapy wasn't like as big as it is now. And I didn't know anything about it. And he couldn't really tell me what it was. So it was one of those things where I was
Kind
like,
of a red flag if they can't explain
yeah,
it.
right. And I was kind of like, okay, this seems like bullshit. Like, I don't want to do this. So I just never did it.
No, that's exactly what I did.
Okay.
Eventually I did it, but in the beginning I was like, no, that sounds ridiculous. I'm not doing that.
Exactly. Now I would probably try it. Like, I need to find a doctor again, and I would
Mhm.
probably do it at this point in my life.
Yeah, I'm curious if it would help because like they also recommend it for IBS. So I wonder if it could help you with both conditions.
Yeah, I've been seeing that actually. And I see so many people on social media talking about it and how much it has helped them. So I'd be willing to give it a shot at this
Yeah,
point.
absolutely. That could be some good content for your accounts.
That's true. Yeah.
Ever go through life like, this, I could make a video about this.
Everything that happens to me, I'm like,
Put it in the notes.
yeah, exactly. Like, how am I going to complain about this? Like,
Oh my gosh. So have you figured out your triggers for either condition?
so for my IC again, I think it's really like a hormonal thing. I haven't noticed anything really with like food or drinks
Mhm.
that I know some people have. So my IC is just like I kind of just leave it alone and just deal with it that 1 week of the month. My IBS has definitely been more of a struggle. In the beginning, I think food was pretty like it was more of a trigger. At this point in my life, I'm pretty much back to eating whatever I want, minus a few things. But it's mainly stress and anxiety. Um, and to be completely honest, like my emetophobia totally flares my IBS the most. So
I completely agree with you. So we both suffer from emetophobia, and
yeah,
I feel like that deserves its own episode by itself. But I agree that, when my stomach feels weird and I go into that panic, then just it's all over for me. Like my IBS will flare and then my IC will flare, and it's just like this chain reaction that you really can't stop.
exactly. I know. And it's awful, right? Like once one thing starts, it triggers like all three.
Right.
And yeah, I know. And so yeah, I would say that like stress and just like really the mental aspect is my biggest trigger with my IBS. And
Mhm.
not to say that if your triggers are food that that's easy, because it's not. Um but in my personal experience, I found that because my triggers are more mental, it's harder to treat.
Yeah. It's so hard to get yourself you know, in a calm state and not have those like panic responses. It's so difficult to like cope with that and work through that. I mean, have you ever been to therapy for any of this?
So I was going to therapy. I started in 2016 for a completely unrelated reason. And then once we kind of resolved that issue, then I started talking about my emetophobia, my IBS. And my therapist at the time, she was amazing for what I originally went to her for. But she wasn't really specialized in like patients with like chronic pain. So she really tried her best, but I just didn't feel like I was getting much out of it. So with that, it didn't really help me then, but I am currently looking for a therapist that does specialize in that to hopefully get a grip on some of that.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's important to talk about is that therapists do or they can specialize and someone like for example my sex therapist wouldn't be able to help me with my emetophobia. It's like you kind of have to go to someone who is comfortable with that and has the proper training to help you with that. And specifically like emetophobia, I think the recommendation is like oh, what's it called, um you probably know the term for it. It's something therapy.
Oh, exposure.
Exposure therapy. I always want to say immersion therapy.
Close.
Exposure therapy. And, that's a whole thing in itself. And, you want to work with somebody that you trust. And I feel like that applies to so many different,
Yeah.
parts of the medical journey. But how did we get to this topic? I gotta reel it in.
Triggers for IBS and
Gotta
IC.
reel it in.
I know.
So, okay, stress is the number one trigger. That is the same for me. And, it seems like in people with IC and IBS, I think the current statistic is 33, like a third of people, 33% of people with IC also have IBS. And so I think that it's becoming clear that stress and the nervous system is like the common denominator there.
Yeah.
Because I've had IBS my whole life. I've also had bladder pain my whole life. And, looking genetically, my family, there's a lot of anxiety. My parents both have anxiety, their parents, I think it was honestly just, I was predisposed to it. Do you have anything like that in your family?
I mean, yeah, that all makes sense. I'm trying to, my family is, yeah, I would say yes, even though they would probably say no.
Of course, they'll
Definitely
say
some
no.
mental illness going on that they just don't want to talk about. Yeah, I would say that, I know, my brother's a really anxious person. I think my mom is too. I think it spiraled down from that. So I totally agree with that.
And it
Yeah.
could have been the environment that you grew up in. It could have just been tense and a lot of high anxiety situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love my family and they've done everything for me my entire life, but I definitely grew up in a house where I'm the weird drama queen because I have any type of emotion. If I'm too excited or too sad, it's whoa, calm down. They're all pretty they try to keep it in, and I'm just not like that. So yeah, it was a little tense growing up. My dad was kind of scary. He's just the type of dad that he'll just give you a look and you're in
Oh,
trouble.
one
Um,
of those.
yeah. So he's a great guy. I'm not trying to make him sound like he's the worst, but
No, I know what you mean. My high school volleyball coach was like that, and it's
yeah,
one of my best friend's dad, and off the court, he's a really nice guy. It's just some people are like that.
yeah, no, exactly. So I do think maybe some of that. I think I truly am just at my core an anxious person, whether that's stemmed from other people in my family. I think that's just who I am. Uh,
Mhm.
so I think that's just always been a bad thing for myself.
Mhm. And how did both IBS and IC affect relationships for you growing up?
Sure. I mean, kind of like I was saying before when I was first diagnosed and in middle school, just friendships were hard because I was never at school. I was never going to, birthday parties and hanging out with friends because I was too scared to do anything. So friendships were hard for a while. In terms of romantic relationships, I wouldn't say I've ever had a boyfriend that ever made me feel bad for my health issues. It was more just I felt insecure and embarrassed about them, and it would affect dates we could go on. I didn't want to go out to eat. Honestly, I think I'm a great date because I'm a cheap date because I don't want to eat anything.
Exactly.
I don't want to drink anything. So, but it sometimes made things awkward, or if we were out and I wanted to come home because I started feeling sick, I would always feel immense guilt for that. Same thing with friends. If I had to cancel on friends short notice for not feeling well, I'm blessed that I've really have had really great friends and romantic partners and a husband now that have all just been really understanding, but it's definitely was stressful at times with dating and
Mhm.
social life.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there is the insecurity and that I think pressure that we put on ourselves to be perfect. I don't know if you feel like you're a perfectionist, but I know I am, and I just always want everyone to love me, and sometimes it can feel like my illnesses kind of affect my loved ones that way.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you feel like a burden sometimes to the people in your life, because even though they're there and saying like it's fine, like it doesn't even matter, I'm like, no, but it does. Like I feel like it, like I'm ruining your day, or like I'm canceling plans at the last minute, and I know that's annoying. And yeah, it can really make you just like, you're your own worst enemy. And yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, 1000% agree with that. Do you have like a go-to like IBS flare management technique?
It's a good question. I feel like so okay, I guess I could go a few different ways with this. If I know I'm like traveling, or if I have something coming up, and I'm just trying to prevent a flare from coming,
Mhm.
um, things I do to try to manage that is like, watch what I'm eating the few days leading up to it.
Do you avoid like the typical like spicy foods? What else do they recommend with IBS?
I try to like really avoid caffeine.
What about dairy? How do you do with dairy?
I'm weirdly okay with
Yeah.
dairy. Like if it's like heavy cream, like ice cream or like a creamy sauce, then I have to like take a lactate pill, and I'm usually fine.
Mhm.
Um, Dairy though, we get along for some reason.
Yeah, that's great.
Um, yeah, I know there's so many people out there that can't do dairy, so
Right.
one of the lucky ones. But yeah, I try to avoid like spicy foods. Caffeine is a really big trigger for me that I just always ignore and make myself suffer anyway.
Hmm.
Certain vegetables, fruits, stuff like that. Try to avoid those things. I try to avoid like, I also have this thing where sometimes I love to overindulge in whatever, and then that causes a flare. So just trying to like pay attention to the amount I'm eating, alcohol, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I really just like, honestly, I just try to like keep myself calm and distracted at all times. I really think my biggest downfall is psyching myself out and making like quite literally making myself sick.
Hmm.
Even when
It's
they're
so easy to trigger
bad.
a stress reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just try to keep myself distracted. I try to stay as organized as I can, like plan things out, because if I leave things to the last second, then I get stressed out, then it causes issues. So yeah, watching what I'm eating, staying organized, staying distracted. Those are like my three main things.
Hmm. I would say for me, it's staying hydrated. If I'm going on a trip, like I always get traveler's constipation. I always, always do a bowel massage because that's like one weird thing that helps me. Um, and every once in a while, like I'll forget that I have IBS and then I'll eat something with like raw onions in it or something random and it just like triggers me. And I'm like, where did this even come from?
Onions are like the devil, I swear. Like no one can eat them.
Right. It's like, why?
I know. Yeah, they're just like so hard. Even for normal people.
Yeah.
To like they're just hard to break down. It like gives everyone at least like some sort of indigestion. Um,
Right.
but actually it's fun. Yeah, when you were talking about like traveling, one major thing for me too is like staying in routine every as close as I can, like every day. I've noticed that my gut wants things at the exact same time every single day. And if I don't do that because life happens, then it freaks out. So staying in routine really helps too.
Hmm. Do you take any like supplements, like maybe fiber supplements or I don't know, peppermint oil, anything like that?
So right now I don't, but one thing I was taking for like a really long time that my gastro had told me to start taking were ginger root pills, uh,
Okay.
because when I was constantly taking like Imodium, and I had a prescription like antispasmodic for my intestines for like cramping and diarrhea, but they would then give me the complete opposite problem, and then I like wouldn't poop for a week, and it was just like a terrible cycle. So he told me to start taking those, and they were great. They helped with like everything: nausea, spasming, diarrhea, constipation. I've tried probiotics in the past. never really found one that I thought did much for me. I have tried the peppermint capsules, stuff like that, but nothing ever really stuck. So
Mhm.
yeah,
That's interesting. So yeah, it sounds like for the both of us, it's stress is the biggest thing. You know, we kind of eat what we want within moderation. Um, I'm just curious to see if you did try PT, like what impact that would have.
I like am fairly certain it would help. I'm
Yeah.
actually pretty like optimistic about that, so I definitely
Uh-huh.
give it a shot.
Yeah, it's worth asking about. I mean, I think any doctor can refer you.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think so.
Currently, we don't have health insurance. My husband is between jobs, um,
Nice.
and I a whole mess. I'm an entrepreneur, so I like don't want to pay like 8 million
Oh,
dollars to the
I pay my
government.
own and it's not a good time.
No, I was doing that before we were married, and yeah. So anyway, he just got a new job, so hopefully we're gonna have health insurance, and then I'm gonna book all these different appointments, and that will be on my list. And therapy for everything else going on is on my list.
Yeah, I feel that. The entrepreneur grind, we'll call
Yeah.
it. Oh my gosh. Side note, one of the best things that I discovered was one of those bidet attachments to the toilet. You
Really.
have one of those?
I People like come for me all the time because I buy like the worst toilet paper known to man. And everyone hates me for it.
What brand do you use?
I use Scott One Ply.
That is a crappy brand.
And everyone's like, what is wrong with you? And then everyone is like, you have to get a bidet. And I'm just scared.
What are you scared of?
I don't know. I've just never used them, so they're just scary to me. But everyone rants and raves about them, so that's
Yeah.
so interesting that you
Oh,
have it
I
too.
love it. I love mine. The installation process was like kind of hard, but once I got it on, it was fine. And I love it. And I even got my boyfriend using it and I
Really,
think he loves it, although he won't admit it.
that sounds like a man thing.
Yeah.
Um, that's interesting. Okay, maybe I'll have to
You should
invest.
do it. If you need a brand, I think it was called Tushy.
That's Yes, I see them on TikTok all the time.
You could
Um,
honestly probably just get them to send you one for free and just create content.
Maybe I always feel bad about doing that. But maybe
Yeah.
I'll have to look into them for sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting though.
Yeah, for sure. No, if anyone's listening, I was kind of wary about it in terms of my IC and, you know, shooting water in that area and like risk of UTI and that. But I asked my gynecologist about it because that's like who I've seen recently. And she was like, no, I don't think there's, you know, reason to be concerned there. And I haven't had any issues with it.
How long have you been using for?
Like 3 months now.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
great.
it works. It definitely helps to use less toilet paper.
Oh, I'm sure. And I bet you feel like just so much cleaner.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
especially like we were
Exactly.
talking about before with period poops and everything. That's probably like the
I
way.
know. Oh my gosh. And I feel like the listeners on this podcast are probably going to be like, this episode is out there because I'm usually like interviewing doctors and medical professionals, and we're just out here talking about poop. Like,
That is so funny. Yeah, this is not going to be a professional episode, but it's
who
fine.
knows? Maybe people will vibe with us.
It's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought to finish this episode, if you are open to it, sharing one or two embarrassing stories about either your IC or IBS.
Oh gosh.
And I can also.
Okay, you start, and then I'm gonna try to think of which one's best for me. But you go.
Hmm. I didn't expect you to.
Okay, never mind. I'll go. I'll do one. I've told this on my YouTube channel, I think, a few times, but so there was like one time, I was going to Jamaica with a past lover of mine, and okay, so my worst, not my worst fear, my worst fear is throwing up. Probably my next fear is airplanes, but more so like having
Uh-huh.
diarrhea on an airplane, like would just
Mm.
rather throw myself out the airplane window
Mine
than
is throwing up on an airplane, but I get you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so anyway, I before we went, I took like a bunch of Imodium, And so naturally I got like really constipated while we were in Jamaica. So then while we were there for like 7 days. So then once we got there and I like felt like comfortable, I started like downing fiber packets to make myself go. And so the whole week, like
How they made it worse.
I'd never went, and I was like cramping, I was bloated. I was just like quite literally so full of shit that like I was dying. And then, but
Did you
then
get the
towards the end
cold
of the trip-
sweats?
What?
Did you get the cold sweats?
Yeah, I always do when I'm like cramping. It's the
Yep.
worst. It is
Yep.
the worst pain.
It is.
So then by the end of the trip, I then started freaking out that it was all gonna like come out on the airplane back. So then I took another Imodium. I am so stupid. Like this was back in like 2017, so I feel like I've grown since then. But
We can only hope you've grown since this.
yeah. So then we got back and we were home. I actually felt fine once we got home. I never ended up going to the bathroom though. So at this point, we're like probably 10 days deep into not going to the bathroom.
Wow.
Yeah. So then, the weekend passed and then I went back to work that Monday. And I remember I was just like sitting at my desk and I started getting those cramps, but like on steroids. Like I literally thought my intestine like exploded. But going back to the being afraid of public bathrooms thing, my boyfriend at the time, we worked together too. Don't recommend that. And he lived in an apartment like right up the street from our office. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna grab my stuff, quickly shoot up to his apartment, let it all out, and then I'll come back and no one will ever know. So I like went to his apartment and it was one of those times that you felt like you were gonna have like really terrible, horrible diarrhea, but then you're just so constipated, nothing's coming out.
Mhm.
I literally stripped down naked in his apartment, was just like laying on the bathroom floor, sweating. I called my mom to come get me because I was like, I need to go to the emergency room. At this point, like an hour has passed. My boss is calling my cell phone. My boyfriend's calling my cell phone. They're like, where the
Oh
F
my
are
gosh.
you?
Were you impacted?
I don't know because I ended up like my mom had to then pick me up. She found me like naked at my boyfriend's apartment. She picked me up, and then I had to go back to work to like pick up my laptop and stuff. Explain to my boss what was happening. She's like, "Why didn't you just use the bathroom here?" I was like, "Did you not hear the part where I was like naked on the floor? I don't think anyone wanted to see that." It was so embarrassing telling her that. And then I went to CVS and I bought like magnesium citrate and drank that.
Uh-huh.
So that was like just embarrassing because I had to explain to my boss everything that was happening, and just because I was so stupid.
Wow, that is a fun story. I honestly thought you were gonna end up in the hospital.
I thought I was too, but thank God for colonoscopy poop juice because I don't know.
Yeah, those and another one of my go-tos are the glycerin suppositories.
Okay. Yeah.
That'll get the job done in like 15 minutes or less.
Really? I've never used
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
that's my story. I'm excited to
That
hear.
was a good story. I don't think I have a story that good, but I have a bunch of memories just like making my parents pull over on the way back from a soccer game to go to the bathroom and Burger King or something
Yeah.
dumb like that, or like the bathroom's not open, we have to drive to like some random location and use their bathroom, or I'm in Barnes and Noble, and
Oh yeah.
I feel like everyone has a Barnes and Noble story.
Oh yeah. I feel like me and my followers are always joking about like the minute you step into a Barnes and Noble, a Target, a Walmart, a TJ
Wait,
Maxx, Marshalls, it's like just nature's laxative. Like I don't get it, but it happens to everyone.
Truly it is. Oh my gosh. Well, those are my IBS ones, but for IC, there was my funniest story was back in 2018 when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I was invited to like go to the parade with my best friend whose mom was dating the mayor at the time, so we were like VIP
Okay.
status. It was really cool. And the night before, we stayed over at her friend's boyfriend's house, and it was just like a 1-bedroom place, and the only bathroom was in his bedroom. And so we went to bed, and I go to the bathroom at least once per night, and I woke up in the middle of the night. It was probably like 3 a.m. and I was like, I had to pee so bad. I felt like I was going to explode. And I ended up going down, kind of like trying to work up the courage to go into his room, but he was in there with his girlfriend. And I was like, I really don't want to do this. And so I grabbed a glass, like a cup out of the cabinet, and I peed in that and I dumped it down the sink. And then I just put the cup in the dishwasher and called it a night. And I never spoke about it again until they broke up and my friend was no longer friends with the same girl. And so I was like telling her the story and she's like, that's actually hilarious. Like, I wish you would have told me that same morning.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
Honestly.
Yep. And then a close second, which is mostly me just being like embarrassed for myself. But in college, I had a hydrodistension when I was a freshman and I had no frequency prior to that. And after that procedure, I had like a crazy amount of frequency. I would have to go to the bathroom every 20 to 30 minutes. And I lived in my sophomore year in a apartment and the bathroom was not close to my bedroom at all. And so it was like a hike. And so I would just like go to the bathroom and I would pee in like a red Solo cup in the middle of the night. And like, with IC, like you really don't pee that much. So it really didn't add up to a whole lot. But the one night I knocked the cup over and I was like, oh,
Oh no.
so that was a fun cleanup in the middle of the night. But, things like that, I feel like a lot of these listeners are going to be like, yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get a lot of things from followers that are, similar stories or people being embarrassed that they have to like wear diapers or like something. I'm like, you know what? Like, you just gotta do what you gotta do.
Yep,
We're all just trying
absolutely.
to survive. So
Period.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's a great place for us to end this. If you guys are listening and you have a funny / embarrassing story, please DM it to me and maybe we can make this into like a new segment.
Yeah. Yeah. Please share. I'm like, I want to know what other people have gone through to make myself feel better. So.
Yes, please make us feel better with your stories. All right. Well, this has been so much fun. I will have to say more fun than my typical interviews. So thank you so much for coming on, Christine, and just being transparent about your journey and struggles with both IC and IBS. I think us talking about this is really normalizing these conditions and what we go through. And hopefully it inspires people to be more open about what they're going through.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been very fun.